All right, welcome everybody. This is a successful event for us because we are hitting the maximum number of registrations for this. So we're really excited. We have a great bunch of panelists here to talk about, careers, finding your coordinates. So thank you for joining us for this informative event so that you can learn more about how you can position yourself effectively in your career. This event is geared to all stages of one's career, and we hope that you take away some helpful information. My name is Jenny Byron. I am a Senior Solutions Engineer for the Architecture, Engineering, Environment, and Construction team here at Esri, as well as co-chair of the Northeast Chapter of Women in GIS, or also known as WEGIS. I'll be your MC for today, where you'll have the pleasure of also meeting WEGIS President Alia Roca, who's going to walk you through Women in GIS, what the organization's about, and how you can be a part of it. Katie Grillo, co-founder and co-chair of the WEGIS Northeast Chapter, and Pam Locke, co-chair of the WEGIS Northeast Chapter, and myself will also share some stories of career paths to help you understand what is a lattice versus a linear career path, and we'll talk a little bit about what our career paths were. You'll also meet Carla Ramos and Margot Bordney, two excellent Esri recruiters who are going to walk you through careers at Esri. What are they? What are the roles? How do they look? As well as providing some helpful tips to make your profile stand out on LinkedIn. Lastly, Katie, Pam, and I will talk about the ways we've successfully networked within the GIS community. We have plenty of time for questions, and we hope that you'll make full use of the chat. We'll be asking questions and poll questions, that kind of thing, to give you the opportunity to interact with other attendees. The whole purpose of this is, not to collect information about you. It's really just to get people engaged and to learn about each other that are all here. So this is a networking event as much as it is an informative one. And I would suggest that for those of you who are looking for new connections, bring up your LinkedIn profile URL so that you can share it with other attendees in the chat if you're comfortable doing that, or just make a note of who's here and see if you can connect with them later. Firstly, thank you for joining. Seriously, this is an overwhelming response to this event, especially because it was under 1 week of getting the word out there. We've decided to record this to provide those that were unable to attend the chance to watch it later. So if you feel that this is still a safe space, please share your comments and your story throughout the chat window, and go off mute when the opportunity presents itself. We're here to support each other and to share our career path stories. It's the driving force for why the Northeast Chapter came to Esri and the larger WEGIS organization with this event. It was to encourage each other and to help build each other up. We have one of the biggest networking events coming up in under a month, the Esri User Conference, which in some ways feels like a really big kickoff to a larger number of upcoming conferences and events for the rest of the year. So hopefully you'll learn from the stories, from the panelists' experiences, learn a new tip or trick or something related to LinkedIn and recruitment to make your profile stand out, and some helpful ideas from this event to support you in whichever point of your career you're at, whether that's you starting out, looking for a career change, or considering what options you have in your current organization. With that, let's get started. I'd like to hand this over to WEGIS President Alia. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jenny. We're so excited to partner with Esri on this event, and thank you all for attending today. And I'm going to give an overview of Women in GIS. All right. So Women in GIS is an international professional and social advocacy organization for women and their allies. WEGIS is a consortium of those working in geospatial fields facing common professional barriers. And the aim of WEGIS is to provide community support and professional resources in our field. This is an overview of some of the resources that Women in GIS provides. These include mentorship opportunities, local chapters, awards and scholarships, a job board. We have a podcast, workshops, opportunities for sponsorship, and committees. I'm going to be going into some of these in more detail in the next slides. Our membership benefits include, so we have resources available both to members and non-members. So for everyone, there are our podcasts, our lightning talks, workshops, local chapters, awards and scholarships, access to our job board, and our YouTube recordings of events. Members get everything that non-members have access to, plus our communities of practice, which I'll get into in the next couple of slides. Members can serve on the board and vote for board members. They can serve on committees. They can participate in our We Connect program, which is our mentorship program. Members get discounts on our workshops, trainings, and events. We have a Slack channel that's really great for networking and sharing stories. And members can post for free on our job board. So our communities of practice are monthly industry-based networking meetings for our members. They're an opportunity to connect with others that have shared industry interests. So they happen on a rotating basis. The first Wednesday of each month is oriented towards the public sector, which includes federal, state, local government, science and academia, nonprofits. The second Wednesday of every month covers the natural resources sectors. The third Wednesday is infrastructure, and the fourth Wednesday is private sector. And these bullet points are just examples of industries that fall within these categories, and you also don't have to work in those industries to participate in the communities of practice. So you can have an interest in participating, and yeah. Our lightning talks are a more recent development that have been really successful. Lightning talks are open to the public. They occur monthly. They're 5 to 10 minute presentations where people can share presentations, project stories, or tips posted on the first Friday of each month at noon Pacific. Each session has a theme, and these are some of our upcoming sessions. So we have national parks, UAV and remote sensing, education, paranormal mapping, tribal topics, and public health. And you can register as a presenter through our website. We also have committees that keep our organization running, including the Outreach Committee, Professional Development, Awards and Scholarships, Internal Affairs, Map Development, and Mentorship. And all of our committee members are volunteers, which is amazing. And we do have a volunteer interest form on our website if anyone is interested. This is a screenshot of our job board. So as you can see, we have listed a couple well, more than this, but job opportunities where you can post, you can apply. And as I mentioned before, members can post for free. And just to circle back, in addition to those opportunities I mentioned, we have all of these other opportunities like our local chapters and networking events, our mentorship opportunities, other workshops and things. So thank you so much. I know this was a very quick overview. If you'd like to contact us, feel free to email any of these. I'll also drop a link in the chat where you can subscribe to news and our newsletter. And I'm happy to answer any questions in the chat or at the end of the call. So thank you so much. And I'll pass it back to Jenny.
Thanks so much, Alia. And just a heads up, we're going to be sharing a bunch of links, whatever we've talked about or showing today. We will be sharing those with you at the end of this as well. So I'm going to share my screen and show a quick little video. This is one that is really just about how some of us have ended up in our careers. And Katie has her hand up. What can I help you with, Katie?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Jenny.
No,
I just really excited to see everyone sharing their LinkedIn in the chat, but just because I'm a little nervous about Pam and I missing any questions, I created a really quick Google Doc so that people can just go ahead and put their name and their LinkedIn into that Google Doc. And so just put your name and LinkedIn in there if you are interested in sharing with the group. So I just put that link into the chat. You should be able to just type your name, put your LinkedIn URL, and then we'll send that as a resource after today's event. But thanks everyone for sharing. I love seeing all the LinkedIn in there. Just want to make sure Pam and I don't miss anything in the chat. All right.
Well, and I'm thinking
all.
too
Thanks,
that if we
Jenny.
have, yeah, no worries. If we have that Google Doc, maybe we can let others know that weren't able to get into our to the Zoom event, that they can add to it as well. So might be something people can check on afterwards too, if you're comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to share a quick video. This is really just about people's experiences and like how they found their passion for GIS. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And let me know if you can hear.
I'm John Nelson. I'm coming to you from a woodshed in my backyard in Michigan.
Esri Customer Service, Roxanne speaking. How may I help you?
So I'm originally from Kenya, and I'm very proud of that.
I was born and raised in Dubai.
I'm from a small town, probably no one ever heard of, King Street, South Carolina.
I'm born in the center of Germany.
I grew up in eastern Montana, sort of the middle of nowhere.
I'm Nana, and I'm from Ghana.
I've been to 6 of the 7 continents. I haven't made it to Antarctica.
My wife, Sarah, also works at Esri, so we met here. We're another Esri couple.
I go back to my earliest childhood. My father had rows and rows and rows of National Geographic magazine. I think it was sort of baked in, this love of geography.
When I went and saw this movie, War Games, this is a movie back in the day, there were just incredible maps on computers, and I was fascinated. I went and grabbed this Apple II, and the next thing you know, I'd written a program to draw this map of the world, and I was hooked.
After my first GIS class in my undergrad days, I noticed that there were lots of problems around that could be solved by GIS.
I was intending to go to university and study law, but I read about this technology and it wasn't on the curriculum at the time, it was a footnote, and it just blew my mind.
And I sat there and I pushed a button to make a dot density map. And all of a sudden these dots started sprinkling in and data started revealing itself. And I'm looking at this thing and it's like this model of the world coming to life right before my eyes. And I thought, this is magical.
I changed my degree, didn't tell my parents until we were on holiday. But yeah, no, it's the best thing I ever did.
I think GIS resonates with people because it is the marriage of science and technology with art.
It's very concrete and tangible. People get to really understand things when they see it depicted in the context of the world in which they themselves live in.
Getting a glimpse or a lens into what's going on in our society that maybe we can't see in any other way.
How do you visualize something as ephemeral as millions of little species migrating over the surface of the entire Earth? How do you keep track of all that? How do you represent that?
And it becomes with that not only a way of communicating something complex into something simple.
It's so easy to feel so small in such a big world. And so when you can contribute to something like GIS and the GIS community, it makes you feel a little less insignificant, makes you feel like you're part of something bigger.
GIS means preserving the world as we have it. It's thinking about my kids and my grandkids and future generations.
And really the ability to integrate the environmental factors with the social factors.
And now you get to actually look and go, oh, it's more than just about income. It's about social justice. It's about equity. It's also about environmental justice. It's helping solve questions that people didn't think to ask before.
In what other industry do you have where something is rooted so intrinsically in something bound up within us? The concept of where.
The payoff is that you are impacting people's lives. And I can't think of anything more important. That's, to me, why we're all here, is to learn and grow and impact people's lives in a positive way.
So if we all can get to commit to working and solving a problem, we can all put our heads together to find a solution. Yeah. And that's my, that's my heartfelt one.
So that video, I've seen that a couple times now. I love it. Because when I first saw it, it actually, and as you probably, if you saw, I had a smile on my face at the end, and that's because, it reminded me of my own little geospatial path, like how I ended up where I am now. I have loved learning about the Earth from when I was just a small little kid. I ended up in geology after being convinced that, as a lot of kids growing up in the 90s, that I was going to be a marine biologist, studying whales and dolphins. But really my passion was for the Earth and for maps and understanding how things worked. I'm going to get a little bit more into my career path when we talk about lattice and linear paths, but I wanted to take another moment to introduce myself and give the other panelists a chance to introduce themselves as well. We're also going to give you what we think is the best career advice from our experiences. So for those of you, if you've just joined, my name is Jenny Byron. I am a senior solution engineer here at Esri. I've been with Esri for just over a year now, having come from an 11-year career at a large AEC firm. My role here is pretty amazing. I get to pinch myself a lot of the time. I get to show our customers the art of the possible. I work in collaboration with solutions engineers on the AEC team, as well as other teams, with account managers, product engineers, professional services, industry marketing, and most importantly, our customers. With these collaborations, I help to bring ideas to our customers, to their current workflows, help them find new ways to work and identify new ways that we can also apply workflows to our Esri sphere of applications. My advice ties in with the type of role that I have, which is to network. Networking is all about relationship building. It isn't just self-serving of like who you know and getting all these contacts together. It's really an opportunity to connect with people and to grow and offer your expertise through mentorship, which you might hear about a lot in this presentation today or this event, and to support underrepresented communities. It has brought me some amazing connections in my career. With that, I'll hand it over to Alia to introduce herself and provide her best career advice.
Hi, I'm Alia. I am, of course, the president of Women in GIS, and I work for an economic development nonprofit in Siskiyou County, bordering the Oregon border. My advice is related to how I actually joined Women in GIS, which is through our mentorship program. So as someone who's early on in their career, having a mentor from whom I could ask questions and just learn from was really valuable for me and helped me gain a lot of confidence as I entered the workforce out of college. With that, I'll pass it to Margot.
Now I need to unmute. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. My name is Margot Bordney. I am a recruiter here at Esri. And I've been at Esri for almost 7 years. And before I was a recruiter, I was an account executive in our Global Business Development Division. And so I recruit for that division now. So if anyone has any questions about our Global Business Development Division, happy to answer any questions. And before that, I was actually spent 5 years in international education in that field. So I have kind of we'll go into different types of career paths, but definitely not, wouldn't call it a linear one. Happy to chat more about that later on. And my advice, it's actually a small piece of advice, but I think it can go a long way. So when you see someone at your job or in your network doing great work, send an email to them to praise them and copy their manager. So often, so many people's managers don't actually have detailed visibility into what people are doing on a daily basis. And even if you thank that person for their great work, that information might not necessarily get to their manager or the people higher up who can have influence and impact on their career. It can be really hard to advocate for yourself. So especially for members of underrepresented groups, if someone's doing great work, put it out there and make that visible to their manager, because it can really go a long way. And yeah, I always have appreciated when that's been done for me, and I try to give back where I can. So I will pass it to, was it Carla?
What's me next?
Oh.
Thanks, Margot. My name is Katie Grillo, and I am a GIS web technology specialist. So I work full-time at the city of Cambridge in Massachusetts, and my role is really to help both GIS, but a lot of non-GIS users learn how to use ArcGIS Online and other sort of mapping tools. So I host all kinds of trainings for city staff, and it's also my job to support them with any sort of projects they have. So I love sort of the puzzles that exist within GIS of figuring out how to come up with a solution for as I said, both GIS and non-GIS users. In addition to my work at City of Cambridge, I also teach in higher education. So I work at the University of Richmond, Virginia. This summer, we're doing a Intro to GIS course, but we also have a 6-month GIS certificate program. So I encourage you to take a look at that if you want to learn more about GIS. It's a really great program that has a bunch of GIS professionals that have kind of come together to teach as a team. So it's a really unique program. Excited to be a part of that. I've also just launched my own GIS consulting business, so doing a little bit of that on nights and weekends, and really heavily involved with the community. So I'm a member of the Northeast ArcGIS user group. I've been on their board of directors since 2018, served as president for 2020 to 2022, and wrapping up my service with them. But also super excited to be founder and co-host of the Northeast Women in GIS chapter. So lots of hats on this curly head, but I love this work. And so I think that's really clear when you see all the different things I'm up to. My piece of advice is to put a cat in your presentations or any kind of animal. And I say that jokingly, but the point is just to share your work and get out there and present your work with others, but also keep it kind of light at times. You know, we do really fun, cool stuff. And so that was my first ever advice for the first presentation I did, was put a cat on it, make people smile and make people laugh, keep it light and easy, but also it's just really important to promote the work that we do and share. And it's such a great way to network with others as well. With that, I'll pass it over to Pam.
All right. Funny you should say that, because I have actually put my dog on presentations before. It's gone over pretty well. So my name is Pamela Locke. I am the Facilities Information Systems Manager at the University of Massachusetts in Lowell. So I do all of the GIS work for our facilities department, but I also try to connect to as much other data that we have about our university as possible, whether it's dealing with our buildings, our spaces inside all those buildings, or anywhere on campus. I try to connect all of our data and make it available to other folks on campus as easily as possible. And my piece of career advice would be to not be afraid to ask questions, whether it's in an interview, at a conference, during a team meeting. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it, because otherwise, you know, you might miss out on something really important. It's always good to keep learning. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. With that, I will pass it over to Carla.
Thank you, Pam. So I am Carla Ramos. I am also a recruiter here at Esri. I support our global business development division, which is the sales side of the house. My career has actually been focused in technical recruitment, so I don't necessarily come from a GIS background like the rest of the panelists here, but it's been focused in again, technical recruiting, and that's what brought me to Esri, and happy that I'm here, because this is just really a place that I feel has become my second home. My piece of advice really would be remaining true to yourself, right? Just really knowing your moral compass, taking the time to understand, you know, your own personal values, and just making sure that you don't allow yourself, you know, to cross that line into a role or company that doesn't align with you. So, with that, I'm actually going to transition over to sharing my screen and go over, I am going to be sharing my screen, and we're going to be talking a little bit about careers in GIS. Do you see my screen? Yes, okay. For whatever reason, I don't see it on my end anymore. So I was like, let me double check. And so with that said, you know, the first, again, Carla Ramos, Careers in GIS. Really, since the first application of the concept of GIS was applied in the mid-1800s, it became really undoubtedly evident that this concept could be used to make tremendous impact with its findings. Today, organizations across the globe are increasingly relying on location-based intelligence for better decision-making. As a result, careers in GIS are in demand more than ever. GIS professionals are equipped with analytical visualization and spatial analysis skills GIS professionals now qualify for countless positions in countless fields. Let me transition to my next screen. All right, so over really quickly. All right, so the geospatial analytics field is actually predicted to grow by almost 15% by 2028, which is just 5 years away. So definitely an area that is going to continue growing. GIS is a fast expanding industry, continually evolving and presenting professionals with new potential job opportunities. Most GIS careers involve the understanding and using of GIS hardware and software for mapping analysis. While many of you joining us today are GIS professionals, I did notice that about a third of us on the call today don't necessarily come from a geospatial background. So I thought it might be helpful to take a moment and provide a high-level overview of a few of the more popular careers you'll find in GIS. So now, again, I want to mention that this is very, very high level. There is so much complexity that goes into these roles, but just to give you, again, a high level understanding, GIS analysts, they evaluate and translate raw data provided by GIS tools such as satellites or remote sensing to convert that data into digital maps and databases. Land surveyors survey they basically survey areas to make measurements to determine property boundaries. They provide data relevant to the shape and contour of the Earth's surface for engineering, map making, and construction projects. Conservationists protect and preserve the biodiversity by addressing endangered species and natural habitats, utilizing GIS mapping technology to collect data, research, plan, and advise on various topics. GIS developers create the software that runs and supports various GIS systems. They develop, test, and alter software code for various hardware systems that use GIS technology, such as mobile phones and laptops. Foresters are responsible for conducting technical forestry work, collecting forest data, and ensuring the health and management of forested lands. Utilizing GIS tools, they assess timber, estimate volumes, interpret aerial photographs, and coordinate felled tree studies. Our urban planners create and implement plans for development of cities, towns, and urban areas. Urban planners use their deep knowledge of land use, zoning laws, transportation systems, and other urban infrastructures to help guide the growth and development of communities. Cartographers collect, measure, and interpret geographic information in order to create and update maps and charts for regional planning, education, and other purposes. And geographers research and evaluate how various features on the Earth's surface develop or change over time. Now, there again are several other popular and highly sought after GIS careers, such as GIS technicians, intelligence officers, application developers, climate scientists, CAD designers, just to name a few. As we discussed, there are several jobs using GIS that can be found in almost all industries, but some of the core industries that employ GIS professionals are government, whether it's federal, state, regional, engineering companies, utilities, so electric, telecommunications, environmental and natural resources, military intelligence, agriculture, mining, health and epidemiology, and academic. So now I'll give you a, now I'm going to take some time to go over some of the geospatial careers that are available at Esri and just kind of what those look like, right? At Esri, we build the mapping technology that our customers use to solve some of the world's most complex challenges. We're proud to support their customers in doing important work that makes a difference in society and the planet. The careers the career opportunities available at Esri look quite different than those of our customers that I just described. Esri has hundreds of different roles. However, we're limited on time, so I've highlighted just a few of our core roles across the organization, and I will talk through a few of them. So, global business development. That is, again, the division I happen to support here at Esri. It's the sales side of the business. It's made up of core positions like account executives, solution engineers, partner managers. These are all customer-facing positions that require strong communication and interpersonal skills. They also require good business acumen. Our sales-focused staff, such as account managers, account executives, and partner managers, take a consultative approach to our customers, taking the time to really nurture, build relationships, understand the needs and requirements so that they can best provide solutions for our customers. While the positions are sales focused, these are highly technical individuals. Many of them come from backgrounds such as GIS technicians or GIS analysts, GIS managers. Our solution engineers, however, are the technical experts of the sales process. They are the ones that really uncover our customers' true business needs. They create demos and do the actual presentations of our solutions for our customers. Because our solution engineers are that mixture of like technical experts and they possess such strong interpersonal skills and presentation skills, they're often the ones that are called upon to present at our various conferences, such as our user conference that's coming up in a few weeks. Professional services, similarly to business development, is also made up of talented individuals that are coming from business and technical backgrounds who strive every day to help our users be successful. They are extremely customer facing, often contracted to work at a client site for a duration of a particular project that they are being leveraged on. Professional services provides consulting and implementation for our existing customers. They break ground in new markets, push technology envelopes, and deliver transformational solutions to high-profile clients across the globe. Some of the common positions that you'll see there are technical consultants, GIS project managers, system engineers. Our product management staff identifies our customer needs and the larger business objectives that a product or a feature will fulfill. They articulate what success looks like for a product and collaborate with various teams to turn those visions into reality. These individuals have really deep knowledge of a particular product, right? They're a subject matter expert for a particular product. Unlike our folks from professional services or global business development, they tend to have more wide variety of product and technology knowledge, but not necessarily in the same depth as our product management folks. Some of the roles that you'll see here are product analysts, principal lifecycle managers, product marketing. For instance, a product analyst, what they do is they mine and analyze data related to product sales, usage, target market segments, and current customers to provide key insight and recommendations. They build forecast and predictive models to support product management and decisions, collaborating mainly with internal stakeholders. So these particular roles aren't as external facing. Most of the people that they are interacting with are product managers, product marketing managers, to understand the data analysis requirements to provide appropriate solutions. Our software development division is unlike the other business that I've covered so far. They don't only employ GIS-focused professionals. They do have quite a bit of folks that are deeply focused in GIS, but they also have technical experts in various coding languages such as C++, C#, .NET, Java. They have staff that are building our 2D and 3D software, experts in geocoding and algorithms and mobile technologies. Some of the type of positions you'll see in this area of the organization are DevOps engineers, back-end software engineers, and then web application developers. Our educational services area provides our customers with rich learning environments through hand-on trainings for instructional delivery and facilitated activities. The roles that we tend to see pretty frequently in this area of the business is GIS instructors, support analysts. Now, again, this is a very, very small list. It's not even scratching the surface of all the career opportunities available at Esri. If you are currently transitioning, if you're passively keeping your options open, if you're active in your career search, I encourage you to take a look at our career site as well as the GIS career board. Even if you aren't a GIS professional, Esri has many areas in the organization that don't require previous use of GIS, such as our business operations, marketing, customer service. If you view our career site, you'll also be able to access a number of user cases, which will give you a little bit more insight as to how our customers are able to make the impacts that they are making in the world. You'll see employee testimonials and then a full list of all our available openings. You can filter those by location as well as area of interest. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Jenny, and she's going to take us through linear and lattice career paths.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carla. This is great. And what I would say is I joined here as a senior solution engineer. I wasn't 100% sure what the Esri roles were when I was looking into them, right? I'm used to GIS Analyst 1, GIS Analyst 2, GIS Project Lead, those kinds of things. So it was really interesting to see that a lot of those roles fit into so many different areas. Like as a solutions engineer, what Carla was saying, I really get to try a whole bunch of different things out. I get to do demos. I get to work with customers directly. I get to have a lot of fun with my role, quite frankly, because I get to do a lot of different things that bring it all together. And while I did that in my career, I didn't know that that's what that role was. So I found seeing the list of the list of different roles or career paths at Esri was really helpful for myself. But feel free to reach out to any of us if you are wondering what this is, what you have questions about those roles, especially to Carla and to Margot, because they'll have some really great in-depth knowledge about those different career paths. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is a linear and a lattice career path. You probably already know this. This isn't, it's not rocket science. It's not something that you haven't heard of in maybe different words. But a linear path is really just that natural progression. You went to school, you got a job out of that, you went and followed that natural path, GIS analyst, maybe intern first, GIS analyst 1, GIS analyst 2, and you kind of went through that whole long direct career path. That is what a linear path. You're just following the steps. You're following that org chart. You're not really deviating. You're just moving along in a standard, straightforward way. The lattice option, let's see if my slide will move, it's a little bit different. I like to call it a choose your own adventure, either voluntarily or involuntarily. So you may have had something that was, you might have decided that you wanted to try something new. And, in my case, and I'll go into my story of how I ended up in my career, you may have graduated thinking this is what you're going to be doing. And either the job market wasn't great or something forced you to change things. Next thing you know, you're in a completely different role, something you didn't study for. So this one is that's a lot more varied. It can be textbook. You can literally just go straight up the chart and, go from like say a GIS analyst 1 all the way up to management. Like you work towards that really quick on an aggressive path. It could be that you decide, that you have a whole new sector and you're moving to a new one. There's been reorganization within your company. Or you might be taking a pause in your career for your family or for education, and you're coming into a brand new role, or your role that's slightly changed. So there's so many different things that you can do with a lattice career. And I would say, like for myself, and I'll ask Pam and Katie this, but like for myself, I don't think I know many people that have had a linear career. It's often lattice. It's often this, you're progressing through things and life is throwing you some curveballs and you adapt and you try something new out. I don't know, Katie, Pam, did you find the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would consider myself more of having a lattice career path. I started out in school studying, what was it called? Adventure education, I think, all like outdoor stuff. And then I thought I probably wouldn't have the best career in that. So I switched over to physical geography. And then that's where I learned about GIS. So I got my degree in GIS. I had an internship. I started at a consulting firm and I was there for a couple of years. Then I stopped. I did some travel. I came back and it was, during that big recession back in like 2008, and I couldn't find a job in GIS. So, I did other things until opportunities presented themselves and I ended up where I am today. So I kind of jumped around.
No, that sounds familiar. Katie?
It's interesting. I hadn't really thought much about it. I went to school for GIS. So I have a degree in geography with a specialization in GIS. And I did the GIS internship thing. And then now, as I said in my intro, obviously I'm like all in with a GIS career. I did have a brief stint where I went off and worked for a volunteer tourism company where I was doing like recruitment and outreach for all kinds of like animal environmental conservation programs. And there was all kinds of like childcare, orphanage programs as well. So I guess that was like my brief deviation. But aside from that, I've been GIS through and through.
You know, and I'll say that for the most part, a lot of the colleagues and mentors that I've had have ended up being more of a lattice career as well. Like you've started in something and then migrated into something else, or started up their own career, you know, in their industry, or found a small niche of it that was really interesting that they decided to just run with. I know for myself, and I'll talk a little bit about what my career path was, it was really different. It was not, I'm originally from Canada. What happened was I went to something called CEGEP, and I thought I am going to be in languages and literature. That's going to be my thing. I'm going to be traveling the world, and realized about halfway through that when I tried on that hat, I loved it, but it wasn't the right fit. And so I thought, sciences, chemistry, that's going to be my thing. And I went into chemistry and I jumped with that thinking that's where I'm going to go. In my last semester in school, I mean, I was already registered to take chemistry. Like I was going to be a chemistry student. I took a geology class and I was like, oh, wait a second, I made a mistake. Like this is my true calling. I love geology. But I thought, you know, I'll stick on the chemistry side. So in university, stuck with chemistry. I ended up switching to geology within my second term, convinced that a geologist career was going to be a field geologist. Again, that sort of as you're a student and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, it's this myopic view of things, right? Like I'm going to do this one thing. So I thought I would be a field geologist. And I happened to graduate in one of the downturns and there were no jobs. And somebody had mentioned GIS. And again, it was one of those like aha moments, like this clicked. Everything just fit into place. I'm like, GIS, this is what I love. This is what I want to do. And I ended up working, again, still a bit of a downturn. So I wanted to still do GIS. I worked at a university for 7 years where I was a Jill of all trades. I did everything and anything. It was a small department. We needed support for field staff. They needed a course taught for computer applications in the earth sciences that I taught. I was working as a computer technologist, so I learned how to fix everything. I did not expect that that's where my career would end up. But the cool thing was I was organizing conferences. I was learning how to market things. I was gaining all these little tips and tricks and skills along the way that when I thought, you know, I want something different, I'd like to try industry, I jumped into consulting, convinced again I was going to do a lot of geology, ended up more on the environmental side, environmental remediation, environmental impact assessments, still incorporating geology and geotechnical, but ended up doing a lot more of that other work, but from a GIS slant. And the cool thing was I started as an analyst. I ended up progressing up into doing project management for GIS, like for these larger projects. I would be the project GIS lead. And so I ended up doing that and mentoring staff. And then we said, hey, let's kick off the strategy for the whole organization for GIS Geospatial. And then we ended up doing that. So it was this like, if you'd asked me back when I was, you know, saying I'm going to be in languages and literature, or I'm going to be that marine biologist, I never in a million years would have thought that I would end up where I am today, but I wouldn't change a thing. And that's the really cool thing about a lattice path is if you're flexible and you kind of roll with it, you might have an end goal in mind, but keep yourself open to the possibilities because there's so many cool things that you can be doing and that you can be trying out. So I'm going to go to the next slide. For some reason, it's not automatically doing that. So my suggestion to you is try something new and get yourself out of your comfort zone. Speak to people in your industry, in your organization. Ask them what they like and they didn't like about their career. Talk to other geospatial professionals and see what they're enjoying, what they're not enjoying. Like Katie, kicking off a whole new consulting business for herself. But you know, I wonder if that was always a long-term goal or if that was something that was in the back of your mind or, you know, and like, I feel like a lot of times we're trying to find that right fit and you know when it's right. Like I will say for myself, it's like a gut punch. I'm like, oh, that's the thing. That's the thing. I'm gonna run with this and be excited about it. So you'll find what's really interesting to you and what isn't. And a lot of times that is just by trying on different hats, you know, trying out different approaches to things. You can also really see like how your organization is shifting. Try and think of ways that you can serve the greater purpose of what you're trying to do within your organization. What are common problems or workflows that you can solve? Is it that people are doing for example, this is a common one, but everyone's doing their field work and it's all on paper. Everybody's collecting information on paper. Can you automate that? Now, you may not have that exact role, but you can start getting people together, and the best way to get people on board is to show by example. So if you start thinking outside the box and seeing where people might need some support or where you can make something a little bit better, give it a shot and suggest it. Like Pam was saying, there's never a wrong time to ask questions. I would argue there's never really, or add to that, sorry, that there's really never a time where you can't offer some ideas for things, because there's always somebody who's going to have a listening ear that wants to make things better. So really just think about how you can be more successful by stepping outside of your normal comfort zone and what that's going to look like. So between linear and lattice paths, really just think about, don't be afraid to have it be a little bit different, because a lot of these ones that are shooting out outside of those hexagons, those are new ones. Those are new roles, like things that you can actually do for yourself. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Margot, unless Katie or Pam, you had anything to add. All set? Okay. Margot, you're up.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I was struggling to unmute myself doing the polls at the same time. So I just wanted to mention, just as Jenny kind of gave that shout out about kind of starting my own business, that was not something in my plan at all. In fact, I pretty aggressively didn't want to do it, but so many people just kept asking me why I wasn't, and saying that they thought that I'd be good at it. So going back to the point that someone made earlier, just, give shout outs to people when you see them doing great work, say it to them and encourage them, because that really happened for me. And then on the flip side, when you receive that feedback, really think about it, even if it's something that you might not think you want to do, like teaching. I never wanted to be a teacher either, but now I'm doing it and I love it. So stay open and stay curious, and don't be afraid to try things, and don't be afraid to reach out to your colleagues and to your network to kind of engage it with them and ask them questions. This is a really, really inviting, warm, wonderful community. So please don't ever hesitate to ask questions. All right, enough for me.
No, great points. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that.
Yes,
all right.
I love that. I love that comment, Katie. Can you all see me and hear me? I'm going to share my screen as well. All right, let's see. All right, can you all see my slide? So, okay. Well, I really related to that last topic a lot. So thank you so much for sharing all of your stories. My career has definitely been definitely more of a lattice than a linear path. I completely stumbled upon Esri after working in the international education field. This was working with international students and placing them with host families across the US. And I loved it because I got to work with people from around the US and people from around the world, and just kind of bridging those differences and seeing actually a lot of the similarities. And I loved that. I then completely stumbled upon Esri after moving to Redlands and applied for an entry-level sales role, became an account executive eventually, and then last year did a career transition to become a recruiter for our sales division that I was previously in. So for me, it always feels like my resume doesn't really tell my whole story. Like, it's kind of, people look at it and it's like hard to connect the dots. Like, why did she do this and then do this? And so to me, that's actually where LinkedIn comes in. It's an opportunity for me to tell my story and share what I'm passionate about, what motivates me, what I'm good at, and really bring my resume to life. And for me, that thread throughout everything is a passion for diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And that's sort of, to me, my career makes sense when you kind of look at all the things I've done and when I describe it. But on paper, it can just kind of not always look like that. So bringing your resume to life in that way, especially when your career is not linear, is super important through LinkedIn. So I'm going to share a few tips for how to leverage LinkedIn that come from my own experience, growing my own career, and also from my perspective as a recruiter. So the first one is maybe obvious, but keep your profile up to date. This one's really simple, but as a recruiter, I often come across profiles where this isn't the case. And I share this too, because before I became a recruiter, I thought that maybe like, you apply to a job, they review the application, and maybe somebody's, going to go online separately and just like Google this person, look at their LinkedIn. I didn't realize actually how integrated LinkedIn is to the entire process. Like, even if you didn't submit it, like your LinkedIn is getting looked at. It essentially like appears alongside your application. So don't think that just because you didn't submit your LinkedIn link on your application that it's not getting looked at. It's getting looked at. So definitely make sure that at the very least it's up to date and it should match what's on your resume. It's a big one. So the second tip is to help recruiters find you by providing as much detail as possible about the work that you've done in your different roles, the skills that you have, and anything that you think might be relevant information for positions that you're interested in pursuing now or in the future. And that's important too, to note the in the future part, because you never know, even if you're not interested necessarily in changing careers now, just keep it up to date. You never know what might find you if you put your skills out there. From a recruiting perspective, Carla and I are always searching LinkedIn for candidates that match our talent profile and the skills that we're looking for. So we might use keyword searches to look for specific skills or experience that you might have, but if it doesn't say that, or if your LinkedIn profile just has like one or two words, or it just doesn't have the right words that we're looking for, we're not going to find you. If it just maybe has like GIS analyst or something like that, but it doesn't, go into any more detail. And finally, I wanted to share that the open to work, does everyone know the open to work kind of like frame on your profile? It's like a status that you can put on. I would recommend, if you're even casually looking or casually open to opportunities, I would put that open to work status on your profile, because this is like a green light or like a beacon that says to recruiters, I'm open to a conversation. And it might just be a conversation, not necessarily that you're looking to change careers. But as recruiters, we only have so much time in the day. So if we can reach out to people who are, actually indicating that they want to talk to us, we're more likely to do that. And don't worry, the way that it works is that only recruiters can see that you have that status on your LinkedIn. So I know folks are worried about their current employer seeing that. So it's, it does account for that. So my third tip is really about taking your profile to the next level. This part is about building a brand. Filling your About Me section with what you're passionate about, sharing examples of your work and events you're attending, posting articles and personalizing the post with your own commentary and sharing your work and getting it out there to the extent that your organization allows. If you are presenting at events, and share that you'll be there, and who can you connect with, and who else is going to be there? What are you going to be presenting on? Share the recording after. Just be engaged, be active, make it really easy for people to know what you're about and what you're interested in and what you're good at. Because if they share their interest, share your interests, they'll want to connect with you, and you'll just kind of build this great network of folks who are kind of in your circle who can all share opportunities with each other. And that can open a lot of doors, from different presentation opportunities, job opportunities, opportunities to be part of different groups related to things that you're doing. When I was on within global business development, I started to have kind of like a specialty around GIS for racial equity and social justice. And I was sharing a lot of articles and things about that. And people who were interested in that were connecting with me. And then I was seeing everything that they were posting. And it just became this really interesting, community that I felt a part of. And I was learning a lot from and seeing a lot of opportunities. And so on here, my fourth piece of advice is, again, maybe obvious, but ABC, always be connecting. Grow your LinkedIn network so that you're more likely to see opportunities you're interested in when they become available, because your connections are posting about them. So at conferences, share your LinkedIn QR code with people you meet. So in the search bar in the LinkedIn app, Jenny actually just shared this tip with me. I didn't even know you could do this. If you go in the search bar in the app, there's a little QR code that pops up that you can click on, and it'll have this that you can then share with other people right on the spot, and you don't have to worry about sharing the link. And so like when you're at these events and you're with, you know, people who share your interests like this one, definitely don't miss out on the opportunity to connect with all of these people who are here, because we're all here for the same reason or similar reasons. So don't come away from that event missing that opportunity to connect with all of those people on LinkedIn. And then I'll throw in a plug for, you know, connect with recruiters, connect with myself and Carla. I mean, we're always posting about jobs. We have open positions right now that we're looking, you know, for great talent. And even if it's not a match for one of our roles that's open, you know, we know other recruiters, we know other divisions. Like Carla shared, there's so many opportunities across Esri, you know, that we're always happy just to talk and chat. And so connect with us. Yes, my QR code is up, so feel free to connect there. Yeah, and finally, you know, I wanted to share too that being well connected, this kind of goes back to what Jenny was sharing at the beginning. Being well connected and active on LinkedIn doesn't just benefit you, it provides your entire network with the benefit of your experiences, your perspectives, and your connections. You have a lot to offer. So share job opportunities that you know of, tag and praise people, like I shared at the beginning, you know, tag them and praise them for their good work and get their name out there. And just, you know, if we can all do that, then we just create this really amazing community where we're all lifting up each other, kind of that lift as you climb mentality, and, you know, offer to share your experience with people more junior, participate in the mentorship groups. And it's just a really great way to elevate both yourself and others, which is incredibly important, especially when we're talking about underrepresented communities. So those are my tips. And in the discussion, I'd love to hear, you know, more examples of how folks have used LinkedIn. You know, this definitely is not an exhaustive list, but with that, I'm going to pass it back to Jenny and Katie and Pam again, and we're going to continue the conversation on successful networking. So,
thank you very much, Margot. One thing I will say is there was a couple of interesting questions related for how to customize it so that you're getting the right sort of recruiting targeted connections, because I think some people are getting some mixed bag of it, but we can move that over towards the question and answer period. So don't worry, we've got that on the list of something to talk about, but that was really helpful information about LinkedIn. And I will say, you know, for myself, I tend to use it and I mentioned this in the chat, you know, I find that I share a lot of content. Being at Esri, we have access to a lot of information that I can easily share out to my community and to my network. But it's also that I follow people. I'm very, very focused in who I follow. And part of that is so that I can learn new things. So if there's, you know, for example, if I'm interested in 3D applications, you know, how are people doing that? I follow people really that do that type of work and they're doing the work, so I don't have to, right? Like I can actually just focus my energies on other things, but I want to know what's happening, so I have that pulse on the industry. So think of it that way. It's not always necessarily about how much content you share. That's great, and you should be highlighting some of, like Margot had said, highlight your successes. You know, there's things that you're doing, you know, keep your information up to date, put your presentations on there, mention that you've done certain events, put that information as content, but also, you know, try and follow people that mean something to your career and where you'd like to go. So keep that in mind as well. But I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, you know, how you can successfully network within the GIS community. Now, I will say most of it for myself has been very organic in how I've approached my networking. I was moving around a lot. I studied in a lot of different areas, and then in turn found jobs that were, you know, in different areas or remote. I had to always sort of step outside my comfort zone, and I was always looking for places where I could connect with other people. I'm on the board of directors for NERISA, the Northeast New England chapter, for ERISA. And I joined that in part because I'd moved to Boston and I didn't know anybody, but I wanted to meet other people that were interested in GIS. And, you know, because I'm a big geek and I love it, I wanted people that were also geeky, just like me. And so that's how I met Pam, you know, and that's how I met Katie. So I really did sort of expand my network just by joining one of these local user groups. You know, there's a whole bunch of these, and I think I don't know if I've got a few poll questions. Katie, I might have one in there, but like there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can be engaged within the community. So like, are you a WeGIS member? Are you a member of the WeGIS chapter, your local chapter? Have you joined Esri's Young Professional Network? There's a whole slew of different organizations like NERISA, the Northeast ARC Users Group, NEARC, North Star of GIS. There's these fantastic organizations that you can join. And not only is it just like, okay, you've joined it and it's there, what's it going to do for you? You need to be somewhat of an active participant. Now, that might not be like most of these events, or most of these communities are volunteer run, right? All of us here today, even though I'm working at Esri, we're all volunteering our time. And in part, that's because we love that connection. They're really all about forming those connections, making people feel like they have support. And we really do foster that mentorship mentality. So that's what joining these communities is going to do for you. It's going to give you that broadening of perspective, figure out what people are doing in your area, and just give you a chance to meet new people. It's also a really great way for you to keep up to date with things. Similar to what I mentioned with LinkedIn, I follow people because I want to know what's happening. GIS is such a fast-paced industry, and there's always new apps, new workflows. AI is taking over everything. Everyone is trying to figure out how to write code with ChatGPT to make, you know, their workflows go faster. So, you know, keeping up to speed with that information, it helps when you're part of a network and if you're networking in the right community. So, you know, networking and growing your skills within the GIS community is really, really helpful. So if it's important to focus on like keeping your skills current, search out those professional development opportunities. Some of these things that keep your skills current and that are less of a lift can be, you know, like joining a different community near you. It could be attending a webinar or something like that. Find ways too where you can do that. You know, present at an event like a webinar or a workshop and a conference. Find something that you want to learn more about. Well, it would improve your workflow in your organization. You know, that's going to force you to grow. So you could, for example, say like, I think that if I had a dashboard that showed the metrics for how people are collecting it or what information people are collecting in the field, that would be really helpful. But you don't know how to set up a dashboard. That's a good thing that you could be learning. You could be figuring that out on the job, applying it and showing the value of GIS within your organization. That again could put you on a different path. So find those like lighter lift things that are tied into your role. You know, find those things that are gonna make you step out of your comfort zone just a little bit. I used to sign myself up for conferences to present, and sometimes it would just be, I'd put together the abstract and say, all right, I'm going to figure this out afterwards if it gets accepted, but this is what's going to spur me on to try something new. So, you know, sometimes you can have a little bit of fun with it and really push yourself harder when you have a goal in mind or an end point. When those call for abstracts go out on the geospatial community web pages or the newsletters, they really are a chance to grow. And, you know, there's a few that have come out even just in the last little while, like Katie can talk to the fall NEARC one. I believe that just came out as a call for papers or abstracts like just a couple weeks ago. So, you know, even though things are really busy in your career, it's really helpful to just pick one thing that's going to help you learn or grow and develop professionally. So just keep that in mind. Another thing, leverage training opportunities through Esri's learning paths. There's a lot of them that are free. So if you have access to the software, you can actually follow these learning paths. They're targeted towards learning something really efficiently and quickly, and you can get yourself up to speed to really learn more about a new technique or a new skill. Katie, Pam, do you have any suggestions?
Networking is really important, like you said. If you're interested in maybe attending a conference or learning more about a local GIS group, you know, reach out to them, attend an event. It doesn't have to be a conference. I know NEARC which is the Northeast ARC Users Group, and NERISA, which is the Northeast Urban Regional Information Systems Association, host lots of smaller events like Mappy Hours, which is a really informal get together with other GIS-minded folks. And online events like this is a great way to meet people. You know, you see names, you hear people talk about something you're interested in, reach out to them on LinkedIn, you know? And then I just want to second that presenting is a great way to meet people, and it gives you that topic of conversation. If you're like me, I'm horrible at small talk. It gives me anxiety. So presenting at a conference and having something to talk about with other people there is always great. And, you know, practice your public speaking. Can't hurt.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one thing about presenting and sharing your work, because I remember when I first started out my GIS career, I was really nervous to do this kind of stuff. And just remember, no one knows your work better than you. So just own that. When you want to share what you're doing, just own it. And 9 times out of 10, if you say something wrong, nobody in the audience is going to know the difference. So that, I mean, you should obviously do your homework and present as well as you can. But yeah, just own it. You know, this whole idea of like imposter syndrome, I wish that we would all be kinder to ourselves about that. And I'm guilty of it too. We're all guilty of it. But really, you have so many more talents than you give yourself credit for. And people want to see that and would love to be able to learn from what you do. So definitely share your work. One other thing too, we keep talking about LinkedIn and connecting with one another, but I got a really great tip once from, shout out to Eva Reed, who is an amazing member of the Women in GIS community. And Eva told me that when you send a LinkedIn request, there's an option for you to add a note. And even if you don't know that person, little trick, like if you go to LinkedIn and instead of just clicking the connect button, if you connect, I think it's click the 3 little dots, then it gives you the option to send a note when you connect. And I have to say, at this point, I get a lot of LinkedIn requests, and I'm no offense, but I might not remember who you are or where I met you from. So by adding that little note, like, hey, Katie, I saw you at the Women in GIS session yesterday. Would love to connect. You know, just putting that little note in there gives me, as the receiver, gives me a little bit of information about you, but then also helps to kind of build that connection more, right? You can even ask a question and say, hey, Katie, you mentioned that you do web GIS. Where can I find more research? You know, like just like putting a little bit of more of like a human touch or more of a sort of personal touch onto your LinkedIn connections, I think can go a really long way.
No, that's perfect, and exactly what I was hoping for from you both. I feel like that's that little touch, that little send a note has been one of my favorite features from LinkedIn recently, because I get a lot of people that are trying to connect, and I don't always know where they're connecting from, and I haven't met them sometimes. So even just having that note, like, oh, I follow your content, it's really helpful to see this information, you know, would really love to connect. That really does go a long way. You know, one of the other things I wanted to point out is, like, we had a Northeast Women in GIS event back in February, and it was such a cool experience to see so many people interested from the Northeast that they reached out and said, we just didn't know that we were looking for this. You know, we were looking for this opportunity to connect. So there's one thing I would like to add is, if you're not seeing the event that you want, that networking event, make your own. It's okay. Make your own. Reach out to a local organization or community and say, hey, I'm interested in, you know, leading a Mappy Hour or leading a Mapathon, or I'd like to do a lunchtime, you know, I'll coordinate the lunchtime networking event at the UC for this, and would love to have, you know, the Northeast chapter or the local chapter that's here to be involved. So, you know, think outside the box. It doesn't have to be something that other people are putting on. If you see that there's a gap in your community, fill it. People are generally trying, they may not step up. They're waiting for someone to step up. So you can be that leader. Another amazing thing, and this one I can't stress highly enough, is mentorship, both either as a mentor or a mentee. So I have benefited from people that have been mentors to me. I have, I have benefited from being a mentor to somebody else. It really makes such a big difference when somebody can feel heard, feel seen, feel supported within their career. If somebody's already gone through these pitfalls, I mean, sometimes we all have to learn by making mistakes, but it's really helpful to have somebody there who's going to catch you a little bit when you fall, so having a mentor really is someone that's going to help you navigate or be a sounding board for navigating your career. I would strongly recommend, if you don't have a mentor already, find one, and that's something that through Women in GIS, they have I think it's called We Connect. You can sign up to be a mentor. You can sign up to be looking for a mentor. Please use that, and we'll share those links afterwards. Please use that as a guide for just being connected more in the industry. So we're at about 1:12, and I'd like to give some time for some questions. What's next? These are some of the links that we're going to share with you. You can join some of these communities. You can learn a little bit more. This is by no means an exhaustive list. This is just a small snippet from ones we've talked about. We are so thankful that you joined this event, and we appreciate all the time that you've taken out of your day to spend with us. And huge thanks to all the panelists for sharing your stories and experience. I'm going to pass it over to Katie to close things up in a few minutes and open up questions. But what I'm going to recommend is, I think someone's going to copy and paste this into the chat. So by all means, grab it. We will also try and send it out afterwards for those of you that registered with your email, so that you'll have access to this as well. Or maybe put it in the Google Doc. That might be a little easier. But there's a ton of reasons. So just join some of these organizations, and remember, they're volunteer based. So if you're able to, support them by becoming a member, becoming a paying member, because those payment dues go right back into the organization to enable them to provide services to those that are students or getting up in the career. So this is a great way to get connected and to also really support local communities. And Katie, I'll pass this over to you to talk about some of these upcoming events that we've got coming on.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thank you. And actually, Jenny, if you can pop back to the other slide really quick. I just, there was a question in the chat about somebody asked if there was a link for volunteering. And there's your links. Essentially, there's no specific, and I can speak more so from NEARC, being on that board of directors. We don't necessarily have a link that explains volunteer opportunities. It's just knowing that I think everything you see on this page right now is a volunteer-led nonprofit organization. Esri Young Professional Networks might be an exception. Maybe one of the Esri folks can talk about how to get involved with that. But most of the time, it really is just about taking initiative. That's how Jenny said she got involved. That's how I got involved. I guarantee you that's how Pam got involved. It's really just about, it's a great way to meet the community and get involved. So just go to these websites, whichever one you're interested in. I know people put a lot of other local chapters and chats and things like that in the chat. I saw Tennessee in there, or something about California too. Just Google it and find these groups. And a lot of times the organization will have their board of directors listed on the website. And then you can use those LinkedIn skills and go find that person on LinkedIn and send them an invite and say, hey, I want to connect and I want to volunteer for your organization. So yeah, just wanted to double down on that. All right.
No,
Jen,
that's great.
Thanks.
That's perfect.
Cool. So upcoming events, we have a lot going on, which is really exciting. Again, thank you all so much. There's the fact that there's still 90 people on this call. We had almost 300 people register, which was really, really exciting to see that so many of you want to be involved in this conversation. So lots of other events coming up. We will send all of these as part of our follow-up email to you. And some of them are local just because it's the folks that are involved on this call that help to organize. So we kind of threw some of our events on there. But I encourage you, if you know of any other events that are coming up, feel free to put those in the chat. We will also be saving this chat and sending that as a follow-up. So don't worry if you're frantically trying to copy and paste. Promise we will send all of the resources after. And And I think, so we've got about 15 minutes left, and that was the bulk of what we wanted to cover. So I think at this point, if we wanted to, maybe before we dive into the last part, I'm wondering if folks are willing to take a group photo. We could get a little crazy with that. So if you are interested, go ahead and turn your camera on. I'm going to ask all of my co-hosts to help me by taking screenshots at the same time. And then maybe what we can do is get a full list of everybody. So we will take a screenshot. We'll blur out your names if we share it on social. But this is something that we use to kind of promote some of our events and promote the Women in GIS Network. So, all right, are all of my co-hosts ready?
Almost. Just 1 second.
All right.
Okay, I'm ready.
We'll have to scroll through, so everyone will have to cheese as long as possible. All right, so 3, 2, 1. All right, and then I have to scroll to my next page. Look at all these people. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. All right, keep smiling. Okay, awesome. I think I got a couple. Did everybody get a couple?
I think I need one more of the first page. Just give me one more second, everybody.
All right, everybody
Okay, ready?
smile.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Love it. All right. Thank you, everyone. And so now with the last couple of minutes that we have, we can open it up to some questions. If you want in Zoom, there is under the reactions button, which is all the way down at the bottom of your screen. It looks like a little happy face. If you click the up arrow, then it should, or even if you click on that, it should give you the option to raise your hand. So you can see now in the participants list, you can see I've got my little hand raised. So if anybody wants to unmute themselves to ask a question, you can do that. Otherwise, Pam, not to put you on the spot, but do we have any like big questions that were in the chat?
Yeah. So going back to LinkedIn, there was a question about getting messages from recruiters more geared towards what you're looking for. So like if you're looking for a full-time job and you're getting recruiters asking about part-time or contract work, and how do we tell the difference between like a bad recruiter or a spam recruiter versus someone who's real?
Well, I don't know if Carla wants to take this one. I have some thoughts. I mean, honestly, I can't necessarily speak to recruiters who are doing things that I wouldn't do. But I think, there were some suggestions in the chat, like to put on your filters on LinkedIn, that you want full-time work or like what specific parameters. And then I think there are some people who ignore that, but I don't know if there's anything we can necessarily do about that. But it is helpful for someone like myself and Carla who, are looking for legitimate roles at a legitimate company that may match your interests and skills, to have as much information about that as possible about what you're looking for, because we do look at that. I look at especially too, like if you're willing to relocate, that's a big thing too. Like I look at kind of like, oh, what positions are they interested in, especially if you've had that kind of lattice career path where maybe you've done a few different things. I'm like, okay, like what types of roles are they looking for? That's helpful. And then, are they willing to relocate? Because some of our jobs are only available in certain locations. And if you're like in Kansas and the job is in California, I might be like, not worth reaching out and asking so many people if they're willing to relocate. But if you can indicate if you are, then that's really helpful. But yeah, I think just having it, I guess, telling the difference. I mean, definitely go to the company's website or, that, see if you can find, Google that person who's reaching out to you, see what information you can find. I know, Carla and we have legitimate websites and career sites and LinkedIn profiles and all of that to kind of back up what we're putting out there. But again, can't speak to other recruiters who maybe are less legitimate. I don't know, Carla, if you have anything to add.
No, I mean, I think it's just like any career, right? Like there are good and bad of everything, right? And so I know that we do our best to make sure that it's personalized, right? There's not, I know personally for myself, I don't just blast out to the same message to, you know, dozens of people or hundreds of people. And I know, unfortunately, that is something that happens quite often. You see it a lot, oftentimes from like agency recruitment, especially because they're trying to catch, you know, cast a wide net. There are a number of things that we take into consideration when we're reaching out to somebody and in mailing, and I do try to make sure that I'm putting specifics as to why I'm reaching out to you, right? So I think those are some of the things that help differentiate a good and bad recruiter. Like, are they actually looking at my, profile? Oftentimes, as a recruiter, I get a number of messages from other recruiters where it's like, "Hey, I saw that you are in the pharmaceutical space. Like, would love to," and I'm like, "There's nothing on my profile that says this," So those are some indicators, right? We're like, okay, they're clearly just, seeing who responds. But certainly what Margot said, you can certainly make those things specific by keeping your LinkedIn as updated as possible, putting in those details as far as, areas of location that you're open to, whether you're only open to, remote or on-site. Those things are all helpful too, because I know that Margot and myself, we both look at those very carefully to make sure that if we're reaching out to somebody, we're being cognizant of their time. We're not just, reaching out about something that might not make sense. And if you're not looking and you're not interested, but it's potentially something that somebody in your network might be interested in, pass that along. You can always say, "Hey, not interested in this, but this is exactly what I'm looking for. Should you have something like that?" Would be interested in hearing you out. But yeah, unfortunately, no real way to filter good from bad recruiters.
Right. Thank you for those answers. Megan Thompson, I see your hand up. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, so this is also a question about recruiters too, and it could also just be a good versus bad recruiter question as well, I guess. But I was wondering if maybe there are any potential red flags that somebody might be accidentally portraying, because I have had so many recruiters reach out to me and then we get on a call. And I even just had one this week where she said, "Oh, you have an interview at such and such a company." And I said, "Great, that sounds amazing." Oh, and then when I called her to set one up, she said, "Oh, never mind, we're pursuing other people." So I was just wondering if it's maybe something that is that just happens really often and that I shouldn't take personally, or maybe if it's something that I'm potentially doing just unknowingly.
No, I think, again, unfortunately, those things do happen. I've seen it. I've definitely have been in organizations. One of the earlier organizations I worked for in my recruitment career, that definitely was something that I used to see from other folks. And it's definitely something that I think is just very unethical. Like, it's not good practice, right? You have to be cognizant of people's time. People are either they're actively searching, they're taking time, if they're gainfully employed, whatever the situation looks like, those are very personal to people, and you don't want to lead people on. I recommend that if somebody reaches out to you about a particular opportunity, ask them for details before you have a conversation with them, before you provide, any of your time to them. Ask them if they could share specifics. I upfront will share what the job description is. I will give you the range of the compensation. I will try to provide as much detail as I possibly can in my initial email. They're awfully lengthy, to be completely honest. LinkedIn recommends against the length that I send, but it's because if somebody winds up reading it, I want to make sure that they know the details so that if they choose to respond, they know as much as they possibly can, so it's worth their time, right? So I always recommend following up and asking. If they're unwilling to share any of that information, don't bother moving forward with a conversation or anything like that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. So a question we can answer very quickly. Is there any long-term licensure or certifications needed or wanted when working in GIS or related fields? And I will say that you can get your GISP. It's your professional certificate. I will put the link in the chat right now. There is a test that you have to take and pass, and then you have to renew it every 5 years, I forget. 5 years, yeah. So there is a professional license that you can get. It's not a license, it's a certificate that you can get in the GIS field. And it's fairly new. And I think the community as a whole is trying to make it more of a thing. And so that's there. Next question. So there were a couple questions about if you're working in one field of GIS and you want to change to a different field within GIS, do you have any recommendations on making that jump? One of the examples was someone was working in utilities and they're looking to get out of the utility world and into something else, but still GIS related. Do you have any tips for that?
I would say, sorry, I was playing with my mute, having fun with that. I would say start reaching out to people that are doing that work. You know, if you've got, again, this is that connection, that networking, that community aspect of it, like start talking to them about what they're doing, because those conversations might lead to, hey, we're looking for someone, or this is the way I'm working through it. There might be opportunities depending on, like, if you're working for a certain organization, you might have the opportunity to collaborate. You know, if you're in, I'll say from different companies will work together as a sub or a prime is what it's called. You know, there might be that aspect, so you can try and jump on some of those projects. But I would say, again, figure out some of the people that you have in your LinkedIn network that are doing that kind of work. Ask questions, reach out to them, and start getting a little bit more of an idea of what you would need to get there. This is also a great place where you could start building a mentorship. In fact, I have a lot. So, you know, don't pigeonhole yourself with just one person. So if you're interested in jumping from utilities to, say, I don't know, AEC, which is somewhat related, but you want to be focusing more on environmental remediation, start reaching out to folks that work for those types of companies and that are doing that kind of work. Ask them lots of questions and figure out if they've got any open opportunities, because there's often, unless you're actually going to be doing that work, like if you're going to be doing the environmental remediation and tying in GIS, usually from a geospatial perspective, you're doing the GIS and supporting that industry. So you don't necessarily have to be an expert at it to start. You just need to understand how that business works because you have the GIS skills already. That's what I would suggest. I don't know if others have. Carla has her hand up.
Yeah, the other thing that I would add to that, Jenny, because I think that those are all great points, and I always recommend definitely reaching out to folks that are in those spaces, right, and kind of understanding, you know, how they got in there, and, you know, maybe what opportunities there may be. But also, if you're focused in utilities, what projects have you been leveraged on that maybe you're working in other industries? Like maybe you've been working closely with folks from state and local government, right, or local municipalities. Look at all of those things. So don't just pigeonhole yourself to utilities, because like that's the space that you're focused in. If you're working in those projects, you also have that experience. And oftentimes, like Margot and myself, when, you know, our hiring managers, oftentimes like they'll be completely open to that because they're like, well, that wasn't their core focus. They have exposure to that area, right? So kind of think about what areas you're exposed to in your career that you could also use as kind of transferable and build on top of.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too, like making it clear if you are applying for a role, and that's kind of where LinkedIn comes in again with telling your story. And I know there's like been debate about cover letters, you know, do people read cover letters? I read people's cover letters because they help tell that story. So again, it's especially if you're like in that lattice kind of career path and you're trying to make a leap, like there needs to be something, in my opinion, to like help us connect the dots of like, okay, you were in all of this and now you're applying for this role. Well, that, you know, help me understand like what transferable skills you have or why you're interested, or yes, you did this, but it's actually super relevant to this. And, you know, help me help you kind of a thing. Don't make us guess. So yeah, the more information you can provide about your relevant experience to what you're looking for and your interest in it, that's a huge help to us as recruiters.
Yeah. We have so many awesome questions. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them today.
Pam,
but
I was just going to say, I think that, so we did record the chat. I saw a lot of great questions in there about portfolios. We in the Northeast chapter have been talking about doing some portfolio stuff. So it's great to hear that a lot of people are interested in that, because I think we'll definitely do a follow-up about that. And then I also love, Annie, I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to get to your question, but that's a great one about sort of like beginner best tools to have under your belt in terms of GIS skills. I feel like we could do a whole session just on that. So that is my shameless plug for you to all stay tuned for more events up and coming. We're right at time and I want to be respectful. Thank you. There's still 80 people on this call right now. That is just amazing. We're so grateful for y'all taking your time to join us, and stay tuned to your emails for that follow-up. And if you need anything else, then our emails will all be on there, but you can also find us on LinkedIn. So Jenny, is there anything else? We good?
No, we're good. Thank you. And looking forward to seeing, I'll be at the UC. So join, like come see me at the UC if you're there. I'll be at the AEC group. Yes. Oh yeah, that's right. There's going to be a few of us there. So come see all of us.
Love it.
Thank
All
you,
right,
everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.